Hi, I'm Jim Moore, and this is This is Justice for America, not Words of Encouragement. Justice for America is the program that we do every Tuesday morning, and the intention is to talk about social or issues in society and to give you some comments on those from hopefully a biblical perspective. I am 40 years a minister of the gospel, and so I'm not a political pundit or somebody that's my whole life is about politics. So what I am attempting to do is to observe what's going on in the world and give you a scriptural, biblical base for what's happening so that you can process it accurately according to how God would have you to process it. Not going to do it perfectly. Nobody does. But thank you for tuning in today. We've got a big program. There's a lot going on, as it seems like we say that every week now. Hey, Heather, God bless you. There's my beloved. Love you. So, tons of stuff today. We're going to talk about the unraveling and what it is that's unraveling. We're going to talk about the question, am I on your side? We're going to talk about wicked world rulers. And then finally, if you stay to the end, and we have enough time, we're going to talk about UFOs. This is a rising concern in the planet today. So, what I do, my format for the program, is that I give a number of links. Hey, Kevin, God bless. Linda, nice to have you guys this morning. I give you a number of links to help encourage you to do your own research. We can kind of be lazy. I can. I'm not pointing fingers. It's really easy to just listen to what everybody says and never do our own research. God forbid that you should become obsessed with what's going on in the world. That's not God's plan for you. But neither, that would be one extreme. The other extreme would be that you're ignorant. You're living in this world, in this generation. God put you here on purpose. You're not an accident, okay? You're not a nobody. But just to shut yourself off from everything that's going on around and say, oh, I don't have time for those things. It's all about me and my close family. It's about more. It's about your circle of influence and so on. So I want to point you to the links that you can do your own thinking. Okay? Your own thinking. Your own reasoning. All right? So before we go into those links, I want to remind you of a couple scriptures that maybe you've forgotten. And this probably has more to do with world rulers. One of the reasons I want to give these scriptures because I meet so many people or hear so many people say, well, we're not supposed to have anything to do with this, and, Jim's gone, govern all government and all that. No. It was never God's intention for human beings to be disconnected from the way that mankind governs each other. Government is basically the way we relate to each other, setting up, how would we say it, setting up parameters, right? I mean, you're a mom, you're a dad, right? You have parameters that you set up for your kids. It's not wicked that you set certain policies, and of course you're involved in those policies, right? And so it's about admonishing us, the scripture, Jesus said, to pray for leaders. Why? And then he actually said why. Not just so that you could be obsessed with it, but so that you might lead a quiet and peaceable life in all righteousness and godliness. This is actually what he said. Not what your pastor said, not what I said. This is what he said. First thing I'll read real quick. Finally, brothers, pray for us that the word of the Lord may have free course and be glorified even as it is with you. And that we may be, listen to this, this is Paul praying, that we may be delivered. So either he was wrong, I've heard some people say, well, we're just supposed to give up all of our rights and we're just supposed to be subject to rulers. And if they come and rape our wife and kids and kill our animal, we're just supposed to surrender. That is such a bunch of hogwash. Even Paul said that we may be delivered from unreasonable and wicked men. And Paul knew something about being oppressed by evil and wicked men. For all men have not the faith, but the Lord is faithful, who will keep you from evil. So, again, one of the greatest men of God in history said, it's right to pray that we are delivered from people who are bent on doing evil. That is a good thing to pray for. It is a right thing to pray for. All right, number 2. talking about these men and women, Genesis 13:13. That's easy one to remember, 13:13. But the men of Sodom were wicked and sinners before the Lord exceedingly. So God himself says, hey, I tag, okay, I know we don't like labels, blah, 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 whatever. Jesus says, God says, through the Holy Spirit, he said, there's some men who are wicked sinners exceedingly before the Lord. Doesn't mean he doesn't love them. He wants what's good for them. He wants them to turn and do what's right. He wants them to be saved. He shed his blood on the cross for them. But the point is, it is right to say, oh, wait a minute, even God, well, don't call that person a wicked, evil sinner. Don't call George Soros wicked. No, people that are doing wicked and embracing that and just, full on going that way, the scripture, God himself says, okay, that's what I'm saying about them. That's why you need to pray for them. Then the third one and the last one, and with many other words, this is Peter talking, another great apostle, okay? And with many other words, he, the apostle Peter, testified and exhorted them, saying, save yourselves from this perverse, emphasis on the word perverse, generation. So, Peter again said, hey, we're not pretending it's not happening. We're not saying that it's the end of the world. We're not Chicken Little. We're not doomsdayers. We're not Debbie Downers. We're just saying, hey, this is a reality. We've been put in this generation for a purpose, and that purpose is to be the salt and the light of the earth, to make people thirsty and to inhibit corruption. Those are the two things that they used salt for in the Old Testament, in the ancient days. Let's put it that way. All right, so those are our things. We want to make people thirsty. We want to make people, yes, God has a wonderful plan for your life. Jesus went to the cross for you. He loves you. He loves you. He loves you. Okay, for sure, 100%, 10,000 times more than we could ever express it. But there is another side to that, and that he who once winked at sin, he who once, allowed men and women, because of their ignorance and their lack of maturity and their lack of evolving, as it were, God who once winked at sin now commands men and women to repent. He said, no, I'm going to tell you now you have to stop. So, all right, let's get right into this. I said that because one of the things I'm going to talk about is a couple of the rulers today, one of them being Kim Jong-un. I think I said his name right. I'm not really good at remembering all these guys. Hi, Dana. God bless you. So nice to have you on. So, it is not wrong to look at these men and women who lead incredibly corrupt systems that hurt and oppress people that God does not want hurt and oppressed. Okay? If you really believe that he wants that and that we're just supposed to surrender that, then you make sure that's part of your gospel. You make sure when you go to somebody who's the victim of racism or some kind of sexual abuse or oppression or people stealing their money, just say, hey, we're just supposed to surrender to that. And it's totally, you don't really believe that. And yet I hear people say it. We need to be thinkers. All right. So I'm going to talk about him, and you need to see him and others and just go, God, step in. Okay, it's right to pray. The Lord of justice. Again, we contradict our own selves. Part of the time we're saying God is a God of justice. If I stood in a group of 10,000 millennials or Gen X's or even my generation says, raise your hand if you believe God is a God of justice. 99% of them would say God is a God of justice. And yet when we pray for justice to come, we go, wait a minute. We're not supposed to do that. We're just supposed to pray God reveals his love to them. And yes, we are supposed to pray that every time. I pray for Kim Jong-un. Well, I haven't lately, but I will. Or the President Biden or Trump or anybody in any kind of position of influence, pray for them. God reveal. I just saw the other day where one, I forget the guy, but he was like one of the lead guys in a majorly evil rock and roll band that sang about the devil all the time. Well, Alice Cooper is one of them, but that's not who I'm thinking of. And he said suddenly the light just came on, and he realized God made perfect sense. J.P. Sears, a comedian on internet, suddenly says, hey, you know what? The reason this is important, more than me just giving you facts, is because I want you to see the big picture. I don't want you to discredit or look at these people that are pursuing evil agendas and just write them off as the spawn of Satan and just pray that God sends judgment. That is not what this is about. I believe God is actually allowing, okay, it says in Isaiah 61, the good, it says the light is going to get brighter and brighter, the dark is going to get darker and darker, there's a conflict, we're coming to a place. God said it this way, he said the wheat and the tares are growing up together, don't cut them down. So some of these guys that have been locked into bondage or even actually pursued really evil things, they're not all the same, okay, not everybody's the same, have suddenly had the light turned on. So we are praying for that. We're praying for these guys, Joe Rogan, to see, and some of them are waking up as dark, and a lot of them because darkness is increasing. Don't discount the capacity of the insanity of darkness to suddenly cause somebody's eyes to be open and go, oh my gosh, this is what darkness looks like when it's given free rein. That is exactly the point. We're coming to a place where humankind will be able to go, this is what 6,000 years of light looks like. Are you listening? This is what 6,000 years of darkness looks like. Darkness has been growing since Adam and Eve, since Cain slew Abel. It's been 6,000-ish years. And look how bad it's gotten. It's gotten to the crazy, crazy, crazy point. That's what happens when it goes on and on and on. In your life, in the world's life, whatever. 6,000 years, ever since Abel, righteous Abel, was slain. Okay? Good has been happening and increasing on the earth. Miracles are abounding today more than they ever have before. Here's what it looks like after 6,000 years of a remnant of people to say, we will follow after God, we will do the right thing, we will keep His commandments. Okay, so you see the contradiction. He's allowing this blatant 6,000 year development of dark. This is what it looks like when you follow darkness. This is what it looks like when you follow light. So nobody is going to stand before Him and go, I didn't know. I had no idea if I followed darkness that would happen. No. He's saying, here's what it looks like. And when the cup of iniquity and the cup of righteousness is full, the Lord will say, enough is enough. And I know I'm preaching, but I need you to see these things, because this show does primarily emphasize the evil that is happening in the world around us right now. I'll fully admit that. Okay, God doesn't lead me to a lot of the miraculous revival things that are happening right now, because I feel like I touch those things the other days of the week when we're doing words of encouragement. But this is the one day, not every day, but the one day where we go, okay, let's be aware. Paul said it this way, we're not ignorant of the enemy's devices, right? We're not stupid, we're not blind, we're not pretending, we're not just, sitting around singing Kumbaya. We know what our enemy's doing, and we intercede because of that. All right. The unraveling. Primarily, I want to talk about the unraveling of the woke doctrine. If you don't know what the woke doctrine is now, I go back and watch some of the other Justice for America. I feel like I don't have time to go back and do baby steps and explain all of the nuances of this thing every single program. Okay, woke is a counterfeit of something that God is doing. You need to know that for sure. Okay, write that up, tattoo it on your eyeballs, get that in your head. It is, as most things the enemy is doing, a counterfeit of what God is doing. God said in Matthew, I believe, chapter 25, He has a body of people. He calls them His ecclesia. His gathering means a gathering. His church, we call it church. It's not a building. You get it. But He's always had a group of people that say, we're going to stand up and represent you, Lord. He says, He even called a whole nation to do that. And they failed, but that's another story. So He's always had people to do this. And so these people have this, I don't know, how would you say it, this awakening. Matthew chapter 25, it talks about, it says, at one point, all the bride, okay, all the virgins, that's what He calls us. Isn't that great? We don't deserve it, but that's what He calls us. Hey, Rick. Who is that? Oh, that's Kirk. How you doing, Kirk? Hope you're doing well. Nice to see you. So he's saying, my people, which are called by my name, I use them as my body. We know this is God's teaching, right? This is what the Lord said. He says, you're my hands, you're my feet, you're my voice. I want you to speak the truth in love. I want you to represent me in the earth. Okay, He said that, not me. He said, you're His body. So, God has always had those people doing that. Now, what did I say? I say that woke is a counterfeit of what God is doing among his church. It says that Jesus himself gave a parable. He said all the virgins, all 10 of the virgins, this represents the church. I don't know who else it could represent. He said, are awake. I woke them all up. So we are being awakened to the day in which we live. Our responsibility both to sound the trumpet of his return, to be forerunners, just like John the Baptist was a forerunner for Jesus' first coming. All of us are forerunners for his second coming. We're placed on the earth at this time to let people know God loves you. God sent his son Jesus, willingly died on the cross for you so you could be saved, and so on and so on. And yes, there is a judgment coming. In case you've forgotten about that, that's still in the scripture. Jesus said it. Jesus said, heaven and earth will pass away. My words will never pass away. All right. So when we talk about the unraveling of woke doctrine, we're talking about really when you reject what God says, you have to fill in the void with something else. Psalm chapter 2. Why did the heathen rage and the people imagine a vain or empty thing? Saying we're going to cast away his bonds, we're not going to follow his rules, we're going to be our own God. This is primarily what you're seeing in the world today. It's not just the individuals who have a differing opinion. This really is the enemy's counterfeit for God saying, I want you to wake up to the fact that I created the world, and the world it does have an expiration date. Absolutely. Okay, it says so multiple times in the Bible. You can't just erase it because you don't like it. Okay, you can't erase truth just because you don't want it to be truth. Okay? He wants to wake up people to that. What does our enemy do? Our enemy tries to do just the opposite. He tries to get people to be blind to what's actually going on in the world and the fact that he said, hey, these are the signs that I said would happen before my coming. Hey, Ryan, God bless you. I think that's Ryan. Yes, nice to have you on. All right. So, video number 1. I tend to find a few of these links. Again, I want to say this because I know so many people, you jump on a program, you watch for 2 or 3 minutes, and then you go and you watch something else. People call it doom scrolling. We're just going through all this stuff. We like to gravitate towards bad news and all that. I don't want you to do that. Please, yes, listen to the end of this, but then go back and do your homework. Look up some of these links. I know most people could never watch them all. I understand that. But there is some information that most of you probably don't know, okay? I'm always amazed at people who really are concerned about the world they live in, and yet they don't know what's going on. All right, so number 1, whatever you think about Tucker Carlson, okay, this is what I'm going to say about Tucker, okay? And I'm going to say what I say about him, I'm going to say about everybody. I don't care that much about his perfection, okay? I know he's imperfect. I'm imperfect. Most of the people that I point you to listen to, now you got to know their reputation. If they're just Looney Tunes and off the wall, then of course don't listen to them. But guys that have a consistent track record for telling the truth, they're still going to miss it. They're still going to think they were right, and sometimes they're not. You know, it's your job to discern, not just theirs. Okay, I have a job to discern truth before I give it to you, but I'm not always gonna be right. Okay, it's your job as well. All right. Tucker Carlson admits on this link that, or I believe it's Glenn Beck who is talking about Tucker, and then it shows a bit of the interview. Tucker's reading the Bible, okay? He says, I'm an Episcopalian. I've never read the Bible, okay? That is a shame, but it's really good that he's doing it now. And he started reading the New Testament. He goes, oh my gosh, this stuff is great. Why are we hiding this? Well, Tucker, I just want to tell you, there's a lot of us who are not hiding it. I'm glad you're on board. Pray for these guys. Really, for sure. These guys have massive influence, and they can help people finally see the light. Instead of being woke in an evil and dark way, awakened to the enemy's agenda, they're woke to what God is doing. Listen. You want to be a part of what God's doing. You have to decide. There are only 2 sides in this war. It's not Democrat and Republic. Don't you make it that. In the name of Jesus, don't you make it about Republicans and Democrats, even though there is obviously a divide. It's not about black and white. It's not about the races. It's not about the religions. You know, Baptists or this, whatever. It's not about, I don't know, bakers and it's about light and dark. It is about light and darkness. This is what God said. Okay, again, this is not Papa Jim said. This is what God said. You need to make it. Now, so which side are you on? Are you on the side of darkness? Say, well, how do I know? Well, if you're doing dark things, then you are ipso facto. You may not want to be, but then you are actually giving credence to that. Okay, it starts out by saying, I want to be on God's side. This is the second part of the title today. Whose side are you? I asked the Lord that myself. Oh, you, Jim? Yes. I asked the Lord this morning. Am I on your side? Am I on your side? I don't take that for granted. I don't just go, wow, I am a preacher of righteousness. I am a standing up for righteousness. No. I know my own fallacies, at least some of them. I know the things that are, come against me to try to get me off track. I said, Jesus, am I on your side? These things that I'm sharing, am I on your side? I want to be on your side. I'm not on the Jim Moore side versus the, Kim Jong-un side. I want to be on your side. I just want to be a mouthpiece for what you're doing in the world. I hope you want that too, okay? Number 2. So watch that first one, okay? That's a must. Number 2, the $100 million mark for the box office smash. Satan hates The Sound of Freedom. Now, if you haven't watched The Sound of Freedom, I don't know why. I'd say it's one of the biggest things, if not the biggest thing, that the Lord is doing, at least in the public view, right now in the day you live in this day you live in. Okay, all of your reasonings why you shouldn't and all that blah, 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 all the little voices saying all these stupid things, just go and see it. Now, I told you weeks and weeks ago that the enemy was going to come out. See, people don't know. They're driven by spirits. They just don't know that. They're influenced by either godly, Holy Spirit, God himself, angelic, there's influences, dark and light. Many people are influenced by dark things. They don't know that that's true. They, as a matter of fact, if they knew it was true, they'd probably stop, or at least try to stop. But they have sold themselves to a theory or a doctrine or a belief system or an agenda or a narrative that the enemy himself is pushing them all the time. So I told you weeks and weeks ago, watch for this. They'll come out against Tim Ballard. The story of Sound of Freedom is about Tim Ballard. They'll come out against Jim Caviezel. They'll come out against, whoever's behind. Now, I'm not saying everybody behind this movie has a clean slate, okay? I'm not saying that. We have to stop expecting everything that happens to be perfection, okay? We're not going to get perfection until we get to heaven, right? It doesn't, any of these, what I call God-inspired movies that have been coming out, and they are. I'm gonna tell you, I guarantee you, I don't say trust me very often, but I'll say trust me on this. Some of these movies that have come out are absolutely the Lord. Are they perfect? No. When you do something for God, are you perfect? And does God use unsanctified vessels sometimes to demonstrate his right? Yes, he does. It's biblically true. It is experientially true, you personally. It is historically true. All right. I'm not saying it doesn't matter, okay? It's best if people are righteous and not wicked. I get that. So all I'm saying is that the media, as I told you, was going to come out against this. They are pulling out the stops. Let me just give you a couple examples. Do not believe the lies of the media. I'm going to say this real quick. There was a preacher, I won't mention his name just yet, but there was a preacher that came out about a year or two ago that had a very dramatic encounter where he actually stood before Satan. Now, I know that some of you don't believe this stuff happens because it's never happened to you. That's the only reason you really don't believe it. If it were to happen to you, you would believe it. You'd get on the internet and blah, blah, blah. I've had enough things happen to me to where I'm not even embarrassed about saying them. I know, well, not personally, but I know this man's character and his integrity. Anyway, he stood before the enemy, and the enemy, well, actually I think he was listening into a conversation. Anyway, it came to a certain point where this, what we call a principality, if you don't know what that is, look it up. This principal demon was boasting about the fact that he controlled, are you listening now? I know I'm going to lose some of you right here. It's okay. He controlled the media. This principality, just like there are archangels, Gabriel, Michael, actually at one point Lucifer, these are primary. They're over other angels. The Bible talks about that in Revelation 12. It talks about Michael and his angels, quote unquote. The devil and his angels. That means they have authority over a group. These principalities are over larger groups of demon spirits. And this principality said, he actually threw his head back and laughed and said that he controlled for a large portion of the media. You ever wonder how the media can eliminate truth by just simply not covering it or blatantly lie? Now listen, don't shut me down. In the face of uncontestable evidence, they will lie and say it's not true. It's like Satan standing right before Adam and Eve in the glory of the Garden of Eden, walking and talking with God in the cool of the evening, and accuse the creator of truth, the God who said, I am the truth, of being a liar. It's so blatant. Do you ever wonder why? I'll tell you why. It's not because they all have some genetic, abnormality. Okay, come on. And I know there are a lot of people that watch this. You don't know the Lord. I am telling you the truth. You need to understand what is motivating. It is not just people that have lost their ever-loving mind, although they have. When you embrace the doctrines of hell, you become like hell. You begin to promote hell. You begin to speak the words of hell. When you embrace the truth of the Lord, of God, the creator of the universe, and his son Jesus, you begin to become like him. You begin to say his words and so on and so on. It's not rocket science. And if you're looking for some super intricate, explanation, and you got to listen to 500 psychologists to make it, listen. You're going to miss it. All right, I'm only on number 2. I need to hurry up here. So, why does the media want to prevent people from watching The Sound of Freedom? So they're pointing at Jim Caviezel. They're pointing at Tim. They're trying to dig up dirt. This is what they do every time. Okay? Every time. Okay? They dig up dirt. They look for something bad. They're probably going to find it. Okay? I'm not the guy that's telling you, oh, none of that's true. There probably is some truth. Okay? I'm just saying. Okay? That doesn't change the subject matter. That children are being trafficked. And they're not doing it. I heard there's one of the guys. You got to watch these videos. You really do got to watch these videos. There's a guy getting on there who gets on and says that, oh, yeah, this is all conspiracy stuff. Okay. If you were a child sex trafficker, nobody will say it's not happening because that's too far. That's a bridge too far to say. You're not going to get any individual who is so, pardon the phrase, retarded, but so ridiculously, insane that they'll say, "Oh, no child is getting human trafficked." Nobody's going to say that. But what they will say is, "It's not that bad." Okay, it's not really that bad. So let me just ask you something real quickly. If you, God forbid, were a trafficker or someone who was someone participating, would you do that in public or would you do it in secret? Come on. The enemy thrives in secret. People, listen to Papa Jim, until wickedness becomes acceptable to the culture, it will be done in secret. That's not rocket science. People hide their evil until there's no need to hide it anymore. That's why they're always pushing to normalize. The point of that is to make it acceptable so they can come out of the dark and do their evil and actually legalize. I told you years ago, I had a visitation from the Lord Jesus, and he told me, he said, this thing that's happened, I can't go into it all right now again, but he said it's going to lead to the attempt to legalize pedophilia. And you're in the middle of it right now. It is coming to pass right now. And what's the other thing they do? They change the name. Okay? Now we're going to call it minor attraction. Yeah. Watch this. Don't believe the media hype. You know, one of the guys that I watch on occasion is, I forget his name. Sometimes I forget these guys' names. I think it's God wanting me to forget. Okay. He has this policy that often he waits. I actually like the fact that I only do this program once a week because it gives me a chance to not jump. I'm trying to give you some nuggets to think about, all right? I'm not just spouting. I'm not just, There is a competition in the world of media, whether it is among believers or non-believers or somewhere in between, to get there first. It's called a scoop. You've heard that, right? Only on CNN. Scoop on this. Yeah, you know what I'm saying? That's part of the culture of infotainment. Okay, that's a phrase in the media world, infotainment. It's not just information, but it's information that entertains. You got to see this. Whoever gets there first and reports it first, they have the scoop. Okay, that's going to do what? Increase their ratings because they got there first. Listen. Don't worry about that. Worry about the truth. Hey, Robin. Worry about the facts. Dan Bongino. Dan's a rough and tumble guy. He's got a potty mouth. I wish you'd stop it, Dan, but regardless. He speaks a lot of right, accurate things. And one of his policies is I'm not going to talk about it for a few days until I gather all the information I can. So I'm not just jumping on the back. There's some people, one guy said it this way, don't be so open-minded your brains fall out. There's some people, they're just hungry for the latest thing, okay? And they jump on it, and it's everything they hear is truth. Not everything you hear is truth from both sides. I know some of you are not going to like that. Not everything you hear is truth from both sides. Then I won't listen to any of it. No, you're not called to be ignorant. You're called to be discerning. Are you listening to me? You're not called to be ignorant. You're not called to be uninformed. You're called to be discerning. And sometimes discernment takes some time. All right. Watch number 2. Number 3. Here's an example of what I'm talking about. This, again, a must-watch. A lot of these are must-watches. In 2014, okay, hear me close. In 2014, CBS, one of the most liberal, some of these, what we call the alphabet media, the legacy media, some of these guys have been around for 20, 30, 40 years. They used to be committed to telling the truth. No, they really did. Walter Cronkite, and that's the way it is. A lot of these guys, not all of them, a lot of these guys used to tell the truth. They used to, the standard for journalism was to find all the facts. Matter of fact, you could have legal repercussions if you just told stories. Okay, that's gone. There's no accountability anymore. All right. In 2014, CBS, one of the most liberal media outlets today, did a program. You must watch this, where they got on and covered the very thing. Are you listening close? That Tim Ballard and Jim Caviezel covered in the movie Sound of Freedom. They literally covered, where they go to the island and they arrest the guys and they rescue the children. They show it. I'm not talking about the movie. I'm talking about in 2014. What is that? A decade ago, they actually covered Tim's story. And they were like, this guy's a hero, and blah, blah, blah. Now, are you listening to me? What happened between then and now? Why are they now saying he's a QAnon guy? Why are they now? You have to be smart. My God in heaven, you have to be smart. I'm not saying allow yourself to be down in the molly grubs. I'm not saying just constantly watch this stuff and spend it hours every single day, and before you know it, you know everything it is in the world the devil's doing and nothing that God's doing. Be honest with yourself, okay? Don't do that. But there are things you need to know. All right, so this is a great example of them now coming out and saying, blah, blah, blah. Number 4, this is a very short interview of Jim Caviezel saying, he's trying to bring correction here. He's saying, wait a minute. I'm not going to go into QAnon. Please don't comment on it, okay? Whatever you believe about that, frankly, I'm not a big believer, but I don't have all the facts, okay? So let me just say it this way. And if you post something about it, I'm going to erase it, okay? I don't want to go into that right now, but here's what I do, because QAnon has become the whipping boy. Okay, it's kind of like Nazi Germany and Hitler. For a while, everybody was calling anybody, Donald Trump, anybody they didn't like, Hitler. He's like Hitler. He's a Nazi. Okay? So that was the whipping boy for anybody you didn't agree with. Just call him Hitler. Tell them they're a Nazi. They're blah, blah. So now it's QAnon. Anybody that says anything that might be exposing the darkness, they're QAnon. So what Jim does on this short interview, you need to hear the words out of his own mouth. He says, when I made this movie about the story of Tim Ballard, I didn't even know anything about QAnon. I knew nothing about that. Okay? So the idea, again, what I'm trying to show you is the accusation. This is what the devil does, right? He accuses. It doesn't have to be true for it to lodge in the minds of people. All right. So watch that one. Number 5. Are you still with me? This one's a little bit longer. Again, it's another Jim Caviezel. I know I'm spending a lot of time on this, but you really need to wrap your head around what's happening so that you can pray and so on. All right. This is one where Jim goes deep. Now, I want to say this about actually the last two, number 4 and 5. The individual, listen close, the individual that gave these links, I do not believe in everything he says, okay? He writes a great deal of information before the video in the description box, like I do when I write stuff down. I am not advocating everything he says. I think there's some stuff that still needs to come into the light if it's true and be proven. However, the videos, 100% I do believe are true. So watch those. So that's number 5. So number 6 is kind of along the same thing. The media is saying Jim is a villain. Rolling Stone comes out and says that it's brain worms. I don't even know what brain worms are. They call it conspiracy. This is one of the taxes of the enemy. False accusation, mockery. Okay, this is why I don't do mockery, because that's what the devil does. And you can't win over the works of the devil by doing the devil. Martin Luther King says that. Hatred cannot cast out hatred. Lies cannot cast out lies. Okay, if a house divided against itself, Satan cannot cast out Satan. That's the greatest guy. Jesus said that. All right. So I won't go into that, but you can watch that one too. It's good. It's number 7. You've probably seen all over the internet, if you've been watching, there have been dozens, lean in close, dozens of people who are reporting abnormal things happening at the theater when they go to watch. I'm using an acronym for Sound of Freedom, SOF. So if you see me write SOF, it's Sound of Freedom. I'm not going to attempt to go into all of these, but suffice it to say, things like the air conditioner not working in that multiple theaters. These theaters have like 6, 7, 8, 9, 10, 11 different theater outlets in one building. Only in Sound of Freedom, AC's not working. I see a picture of one guy going in and saying, we have to, what was he saying? Something about disinfecting. Okay, another one, oops, something went wrong with the film. Another, just on and on and on. Attendees come in and say, hey, we're having problems, we have to stop. And again, if this happened once or twice, okay, things happen. I've been in movies where things happen. But when it starts happening over and over and over, okay. Let's not be foolish, okay? It's not a conspiracy to think that this is a conspiracy. You know me, I'm a word guy. A conspiracy is when people are conspiring to do something, and usually without other people knowing about it. Conspiracies are real. Sometimes they are a theory because you can't prove them, and sometimes they are provable, and that does not make them not a conspiracy. Okay? You hear what I'm saying? If 15 people get together and conspire to do something in secret, that conspiracy, if you find out about it through some kind of a leak or something, that's a theory that people are conspiring. Once that is provable, then it is no longer a theory. It is still a conspiracy. Do you understand the difference between the words? I wish people would learn how to talk. All right. So, not trying to be mean. This is very important. I'm going to shift now. We're going to talk about wicked world rulers. Please don't go anywhere. This is really important. This is another must-watch. There are 2 or 3 on here that I typically label the ones that I'm like, please don't not watch this one if you don't have time. Put it on your list and watch it. Number 1, must watch. Woke or awake. Crimes are finally being, quote unquote, I'm doing my air quotes, officially, think of the word officially, investigated. Elites in the UK, in the United Kingdom, in Britain, in England, it's no longer a theory that they are involved in sex trafficking and pedophilia. Okay, are you listening to me? Now, some of you, they might bounce this video. If they do, can I just say this right now? For those who watch on YouTube, I don't think Rumble would bounce it, but whatever venue, Facebook, if they bounce this program for me saying these words, because it's happened before, you contact me personally, and I'll give you these links again. Okay, this is absolutely undeniable. You will watch in this short program literal governmental officials who now themselves, not everybody in the government is wicked. Not everybody in a wicked government or being led by wicked people are wicked. We've got godly, righteous people in our government. We've got godly, righteous people in the UK. Probably every government has got at least somebody that's trying to shine the light of righteousness and truth. Why? Because God makes it his business to put somebody in those, not necessarily everyone, okay? So you're going to watch governmental officials in the UK bring this out. This to me is one of the most stunning things that I have seen in quite some time, because it lays out, as again, Dan Margino says, the receipts. Okay, you know, in a court of law, listen real close now. Don't miss this. In a court of law, are you listening? Are you listening? Somebody say amen. I want to know you're listening. In a court of law, it doesn't matter if a person committed a crime. If they killed, if they stole, if they assaulted. It doesn't matter if they committed a crime if you can't prove it. So it doesn't matter how many people say there's an elite cabal who has given themselves permission because of their power and their assumption that they would never be caught or held accountable. There is a group of people that are involved in the most abhorrent, wicked deeds that you could even imagine or think of. And we don't want to imagine them. I mean, literally, we are talking about evidences of not only trafficking, we're talking about cannibal. I mean, you guys, it is so far beyond the mind of a normal person to be able to think of these things. Now, in this video, they're saying, okay, there's absolute proof positive, and now the question is, what are we going to do about it? It's no longer, so I guess what I'm trying to say, it's almost like the trial is over, okay? Linda and I watched a program last night where literally everybody in the town who has any kind of leadership position was corrupt. And it just kept going. You know, you're watching this and you're thinking, boy, I hope the next person isn't corrupt, and they turn out to be corrupt. And it just keeps going. Listen, they have to hide each other. They have to protect each other. People that are involved in these heinous things have to protect each other. Okay, so watch that one, number 2. All right, I'm going to shift a little bit of gears here. So Linda and I read a book a few years back called 1 Second After. It's by an author named William Fortune, not like money fortune, but Forstchen. And this is one that's CBN, who is one that I think is one of the most dependable sources of accurate information, Christian Broadcasting Network. They're talking about the possibility of an EMP. And William Fortune has got the backing of a lot of very smart military minds and political people that say, yes, this is probably one of the most understated threats in the world right now, and it has been for many years. I'll just let you listen to it. Sorry, I keep scratching. I think I got a mosquito bite here. All right. An EMP is an electromagnetic pulse device in the form of a nuclear weapon. This is my simple thing. It fires up above. Kim Jong-un, I mentioned him earlier, is doing this right now. Okay. The proponents of freedom, as well as the opponents of freedom, are fully aware of this. I guarantee you 1,000% more than you and I are. Okay. This is not some, again, I'm getting where I hate the word conspiracy. This is not some crazy people out there. No. The government has actually been preparing for this for many years, and yet we're still woefully unprepared. So fire off a rocket, okay, about 1,000-ish miles above the Earth. Okay, this is a reality, okay? It's been tested. Well, not like I'm talking about. You blow it off, 1,000 miles above. It's different than a nuclear bomb being fired and then coming down and hitting the Earth. When that happens, when you set a nuclear bomb and it hits soil, like in Hiroshima and Nagasaki, and it blows everything up, it ruins everything. Okay, it pollutes the air, it destroys buildings, it wipes out people and all that. That's not this. So the wicked and genius minds of men, okay, say, how do we devastate a country and bring it to its knees without destroying all the infrastructure that we want to come in and use? That's the simplistic view of this. It's more complicated, but that's it. So you fire the nuclear weapon, you put it on a tanker, okay, you send it out in the ocean. It's just that's just a tanker that's delivering those things you see on the back of semis, you know, those ocean containers. Yeah, and it's full of, the only problem is one of those ocean containers has an EMP device that can get fired off the tanker. And it goes up and it's over the United States, or maybe 2 or 3 of them, and they happen so quickly we cannot respond to them. They go off, and here's what happens. Everything electric is gone. Watch a video, make yourself informed. Don't be afraid. Hey, listen, we live and die for Christ, right? My life is not my own. That's why I'm doing this right now. Okay, that's why I'm willing to endure the pushback. That's why it doesn't matter to me if everybody in the world doesn't like this. I want to stand before God. I want to stand before Him one day. And He said, Jim, thank you for being on my side. Thank you for telling the truth. So anyway, CBN, usually when these issues come to the place where what we would call mainstream media, whether it's secular or Christian, starts talking about them. Remember I talked about waiting until you can actually, okay, this is something that was pretty provable a number of years ago, but it was still too dangerous to talk about, so now everybody's talking about it, and you should know about it. Number 3, John Kerry. God, I don't want to do what other people do, but this guy is amazing. Amazingly sold out to the agenda. He is the climate czar for the U.S. Why did we ever use the word czar? Most of the czars in history were bad guys. I don't know why the climate czar, John Kerry, is pontificating. If you don't know what that word means, look it up. Pontificating about climate change to some pretty big people. And basically the reason I want you to watch it, it's like 30 seconds long or something like that, is because he makes mention of something. He says that they are accelerating bringing the entire planet into a new and entirely different system of control to save the world from climate change. It's really interesting. You're a climate denier. I don't deny the climate. It's hot right now. That's the climate I'm in. What I do deny, or what I have question about, is the proof. Okay, so we've got, well, follow the science. Well, which science? So like when COVID was happening, follow the science. Well, you've got a number of scientists all hopping on board one side of it, and you've got a bunch of scientists, all of these reputable, cast out the irreputable ones, but even the ones that are highly reputable people, reputable scientists disagree. So what do you follow? Who do you follow? How many times have you gone to a doctor, or somebody you know has gone to a doctor? Oh, it's this. Oh, 100%. Follow the science. And then you say, well, I'm going to get another opinion. You go to another doctor, goes, that guy's a quack. It is not that. It's this. Sometimes one turns out, no. So what am I saying? It's up to you to discern. All right? It's up to you to discern. So that's a real short one. Last thing, I'm going to end up here in 5 minutes. Cannot ignore what's happening with Hunter Biden. Now, I believe that Hunter Biden is a picture of, listen close now, the corruption that has gone unchecked, not only in the White House, but globally. But we're concerned primarily right now about our own country, as we should be, because you live here. Okay? You ever wonder why you were blessed to live here? Because you have a job to do. Okay? If you weren't going to speak up, if you weren't going to be bold, if you weren't going to say anything, then maybe God would have planted you in Africa somewhere. I mean, there are a lot of places you could be where you just be thanking God for being able to eat a morsel of bread today. So blessing comes with responsibility. Anyway, I believe that Hunter is a quite visible, obvious picture, and God will do this sometimes. He'll set out an individual as a picture of what's happening behind the scenes, and I believe the drugs, the immorality, that the wickedness, the deception. You know, there was a time that our country was based on telling the truth and transparency. And if you were willing to do that, you could actually go to jail. Well, they're still putting people in jail. They still haul people up in front of court. I'm talking about the government, and try to prove that they're telling a lie. So there are people in jail today who never told, they didn't lie to anybody, but they're in there for supposedly telling lies. So our own government puts people in jail for telling lies, and yet they are guilty as, I put H and then asterisk, H-E-L-L. I'm not saying this as a cuss word, but I'm saying this when I say, and I don't like using the word hell unless I'm actually talking about hell, because I've been there, and I know other people that have been there, and I don't mess around with that word like it's some kind of a cuss word, because it's a real place, okay? But anyway, hell is guilty, the devil is guilty, and Hunter Biden, there is no question as to his guilt. Are you listening to what I'm saying? Somebody say something. Somebody tell me you're listening still. There is absolutely no denying this man's guilt. Now, guilty of what? Well, at the very least, okay, you watch the next 3 videos, and I promise you will go, there'll be no more question in your mind. Now, did he break the law as far as our government is concerned, and as far as financial transactions and bribery and so on? I believe 100% he did. Okay, but we don't see a lot of that. Well, we actually are. We saw his WhatsApp messages. I mean, it's coming out, but still a lot of it is being held back, is what I'm saying. That's all I'm saying. What I'm showing you is public information. Okay, these videos, and they are, in a way, graphic, but they're not. They don't show any body parts. They don't show. But it shows Hunter filming himself. Listen. Filming himself with a scale and a prostitute in the background, weighing out his crack cocaine. Weighing it out. Anybody that's done drugs, you know what I'm talking about. You know, you get a little scale, you're trying to weigh it out, you don't want to use too much, or if you're selling it, you don't want to oversell, undersell, whatever. He's got a little scale. It measures in grams. He's got his white cocaine. He's filming it. He is filming. What kind of person does it take to be so arrogant and so convinced of their inability to be held accountable that he would actually film the wrong things that he is doing and put them on his laptop, and knowing these guys are not dumb in the sense of ill-informed. They know that everything that goes on the internet is stored somewhere. Everything. Hunter knew this. When he put, I think they say as many as 10,000 either videos or photographs of him doing wicked things, and they're wicked and evil, and God calls them an abomination. Now that's the truth. So arrogant, so deceived, and we're not talking about someone who is, no offense to rednecks, because I have some friends who are out in the Ozarks somewhere doing his own things, playing a banjo. No, we're talking about a person who is the son of the leader of the free world. I mean, it is absolutely beyond your ability to, because why? Because you're normal, and they're not. And to cover that up and to not hold someone accountable, this spreads. Are you understanding this? It's not this thing that gets done in a corner, it spreads. All right. I encourage you to watch those 3. I'm going to have to skip down to the last thing. I got about 1 minute here. So the last title that I have here is called No More Need for God. And I've got like 6 videos. A couple of them are reads, okay? And I just want to point out something about some of these links. Some of these links, it'll give a title, and you'll go to it, and instead of it actually showing that video, it'll show 5 other videos that have nothing to do with it, and they'll have the written part of that there. And it's a way to get you to go there. So most of the time I don't use those, but this time I did because it's important that you read what is written. So number 1, I'll go through these real quick. These, to me, come under the category of the arrogance of mankind when we don't think. You see, when you don't think you know God, or excuse me, when you don't think you need God, the arrogance, the fool, and this is the words of God, not me, the fool, the arrogant, the proud, the boaster, has said in his heart, there is no God. When you reject God, you become God. And when you become God, you become deceived. And you do things that you think are okay in order to create things and fashion things into the way you think they ought to be. Number 1, China. For the last 4 or 5 years have been rewriting the Bible. Okay? So they can give their state sponsor. Don't you believe the hype that the state sponsor Christianity? You see somebody get on the internet and start talking about how great the state sponsor Christianity is in China. Run. They are deceived. Okay? Yeah. Anyway, so China's been rewriting the Bible. One instance in this, Jesus, the story of him finding the woman taken in adultery. Instead of Jesus saying, I forgive you, where are your accusers? Go and sin no more. You know what they do? They rewrite it as Jesus saying, you're guilty of coming against the state and the government, and Jesus stones her to death. I'm not kidding you. I'm not kidding. The arrogance. Well, the Bible's an evil influence for people not believing the government. Number 2, no more need for God. A Portland. Now this video has been taken down, so when you go to this, again, you're not going to see the video, but you do need to read it. A pink-haired Portland surgeon was caught admitting on a video that's been taken down, and it shows you caption of it. Let me gather my. I'm trying to hurry now, and so I'm stumbling on my words. A Portland surgeon admits that trans surgery creates a lifetime of infertility. You probably will never be able to have children. Number 2, now this is one of the guys that believes in it, that does it, that in his own words is passionate about giving everybody trans surgery. This is not somebody on the right. This is not a crazy cuckoo. This is somebody who does it, admitting this. And then he had to take it down because, creates a lifetime. If you don't think these are life-altering things that we're giving the right for little children or their stupid parents to do, you got to know the truth. So he admits a lifetime of infertility, incontinence. You know what incontinence is? Well, just to be polite, it means you have to wear a diaper because you can't control yourself. Number 3, sexual dissatisfaction. Forget about the God-given, natural, normal ability to have sexual satisfaction. It's going to be gone. You'll have to read the quotes that I put from this man, and then look at that. I got to go. Number 3, an example of that. Many people are detransitioning. Here's a guy on the internet. I don't know much about him. His name is Milo. Hugely popular. He's now come on regretfully and say, this has ruined my life. Number 4, no more need for God, making humans out of humans. I wish I had more time. Okay? They're at the point that they're able to make human beings from the cells of your skin. They get a little piece of DNA off your skin. Read it. I don't have time. And here again, this is something done by someone who says, I'm gay, and this excites me because now anybody can have kids. In other words, it's not going to be the way God says it anymore. It's not going to be biological man and woman. We don't need God. Okay? Look at that one, please. Number 5, no more need for God, UFOs. Number 6, AI. And then 7 and 8 have to do with we don't need God in our financial institutions any longer. I'm out of time. I said I was going to talk about UFOs. I'm really not. I will say this. until the evidence is out conclusively. I'm not saying that God could not have created other worlds. I'm just saying I don't believe he did. I believe they're demonic manifestations. I don't have time to go into it today, but Lord willing, one of these days I will. Hey, love you guys. Thanks for tuning in. God bless you, and give yourself permission to have a great day. Bye-bye.